On our way to Mass, we passed St. Peter's, and I decided to stop and give people the story of the time when I first became Catholic and I crossed the Tiber River with my running shoes on after writing my book, Crossing the Tiber, and I explained what I saw that day as I entered St. Peter's.
Another angel is holding the lance that went through his side. Another one, the sponge that they put up to his mouth. One's holding the nails. So I crossed over the Tiber River on the Bridge of the Angels, remembering everything Jesus did for us and his passion. I ran up Reconciliation Boulevard. It's called Conciliazione. Now, it's called that way because it was when the Vatican and Italy and all that had a reconciliation, and they made the country of Italy. But for me, it meant Conciliazione, the reconciliation with God. And I came running up here, and I stopped here at the entrance of these colonnades because they represent, when you're up there on the top, and we're going to have some free time, I recommend, if you can, go in and go up to the top of that dome. See the ring around there? There's people up there. It's an interesting stair climb. I'll tell you about it later. But I stood here, and when you look at it from there, these colonnades look like big arms reaching out like this, and they represent the arms of the church reaching out to the world, inviting people to come, and they're embracing the believers who come. So I thanked all of the saints. See all the saints up there? They're all up there like the communion of saints. They're like the Hall of Fame. The saints are all up there welcoming you as you come. They're all the ones that were our example. The cloud of witnesses, the book of Hebrews says about. So I thanked all the saints for their example. And then I come forward, I went up to one of these water fonts, which represents the need for cleansing before you come into the house of God. Even the Jews had the great laver that you had to do the cleansing before you came into the temple. Then I came past this obelisk, and when I used to be a Protestant anti-Catholic, we used to say that obelisk proved that Catholics were pagans, because here's an ancient obelisk from Egypt right in the middle of their square. They are pagans, obviously, because they have this great pagan symbol. But I didn't realize what's on top of the pagan symbol. It's a cross, which says that Christianity conquers over paganism, and it always has. So that represents Christianity is superior to paganism and conquers paganism. And that obelisk used to stand in Heliopolis, Egypt. That, if you had a video camera on top of that obelisk, it would have shown all of salvation history, because Abraham had to go down to Egypt. This was there long before Abraham. Abraham passed by and then came back out of Egypt. Moses brought the children of Israel past this obelisk out of Egypt. Elijah went down to Egypt and back and saw this thing probably. Jesus and the Holy Family went past this when they went down to, if Nero hadn't brought it here already. I don't know, it's really close. But they would have probably seen it. And then Nero brought that obelisk around, the Holy Family would have seen it. And then Nero brought that obelisk and placed it over just to the dome, to the left of that dome, where we go into the Scavi tour. We arranged something very unusual for you. Most groups don't get to do this. We're going to go under and see the tomb of Peter under the city of the dead, the necropolis. We're going to go 13 at a time. We have it set up because you only can go in a dozen at a time. I'll show you the place where that obelisk used to stand. It was in the middle of Nero's circus. That's where Peter died in the circus. He was crucified upside down. I'll show you in the church the exact place where that took place. One of the chapels is the crucifixion of Peter. Then Peter was crucified under the shadow of this obelisk. It would have been there for that. Then the church, they brought it and put it in the center because they took Peter's bones from that arena that was over there, and they brought his bone. And Constantine did one of the biggest earth-moving projects ever in the ancient world. He took the mountain, the Vatican Hill, and moved it so he could build that church right over the top of Peter's tomb. That dome, if you go down to the plumb line, goes right down to the bones of Peter, and that's what Constantine did. He built that church right over the bones of Peter. And in order to do that, they had to move the obelisk, so they moved it here. And there's a whole story about how the ropes were starting to burn, and because of the friction, it's a whole story, interesting. But as I ran up here and saw the saints, I recognize that now as a witness to all of salvation history. Then I went further, and you have Peter over on this side, No, yes, Peter with the keys of the kingdom, and you have Paul, the two princes of the apostles who shed their blood here, who witnessed to the death and resurrection of Christ, and they were here as apostles to bear witness to the truth and to welcome you into the church, the two princes of the apostles. I ran past those two guys and I looked up, and there's Jesus in the center by the dome with John the Baptist and the remaining apostles up there to welcoming us into the church. I ran into the doorway. This was before they had all the security and stuff. Now it's a pain in the neck, but anyway. By the way, the holy door is off to the right, and we'll be going through the holy door when we come to Mass. I ran through the front door of the church, and there I saw the beautiful church. It's the largest church in the world, and they have little markers to show you how short the other churches are in comparison, and then it shows that this church is much longer. And I went to the holy water fonts there with the angels. You'll see them on either side with the shells full of water. And I blessed myself, remembering my baptism, because that's what the holy water is, where you cross yourself with the cross of Christ and you remember your vows at baptism. And I went up past all the chapels of the popes and the saints, and I came up to the altar under which is the bones of Peter, which they found wrapped in purple cloth to represent royalty. And we'll go down, and we won't be able to actually see the bones, but we'll see where they are. And then I ran up to the front, and there is the great chair of Peter, and inside of that chair is actually a reliquary. Inside of that chair is the wood from Peter's first chair that he sat on in Rome. And there's the 4 doctors of the church, and when I do my last DVD on the doctors of the church, it's going to be on those 4. 2 from the east and 2 from the west, representing the whole church, even east and west. John Chrysostom, Augustine, Athanasius, and Ambrose. And they're not holding the chair up. The chair is being held up by the Holy Spirit above, representing the chair of Peter being the center of the church, with the doctors of the church acknowledging and looking up at the chair of Peter. And above that is a Holy Spirit amber window, which you'll see. It's a round window that's divided into 12 pieces of pie, representing the 12 apostles. How does the church get lit? The Holy Spirit, He's in that window. It's the light of the Holy Spirit coming through that window as taught by the 12 apostles, who are the 12 pie-shaped pieces. The Holy Spirit brings His light and truth into the church by the apostles, and there it's glowing. And I fell in front of that window, in front of that chair, and I wept for 10 minutes until the guard says, "No possible, up, no, not allowed, not allowed." And then I stood up, but I had done my run, and I had done my prayer and my thanksgiving and my